Welcome and thank you for listening in. This is NextGen Cyber, the future of cybersecurity. It's a podcast where we explore cutting edge trends, emerging technologies, and the future of cybersecurity careers, featuring thought leaders, researchers, and educators from across the field. Today, we are talking about cybersecurity and elections. Joining us is Angela Orebaugh. She is an associate professor at the University of Virginia, specifically within the Engineering School's Computer Science Department. Her teaching and research is focused on keeping us safe and secure in the cyber world. She teaches undergraduate courses in cybersecurity and computer networks. And prior to joining academia as a professor, Angela worked in industry for more than 20 years, providing cybersecurity expertise to clients such as the National Institute of Standards and Technology, the Department of Defense, intelligence agencies, small businesses, and startups. Her mission in academia is to leverage her industry expertise to add value and create exceptional learning experiences for students. With that, Angela, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about cybersecurity and, again, elections.
Thank you. And I am happy to be here and happy Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
I know, right? Thank you. Thank you very much. So let's talk about, and I know it won't just be about elections. This is also, just so everyone listening understands, excuse me, talking about internships and ways to elevate our students to move through a multitude of different careers that could be out there. They don't always necessarily have to be big tech. So let me start with just talking overall about what kinds of hands-on experience students gain with their internships when we are talking about local election offices. Like, I would tell you, I didn't even know that was a connection between internships and election offices. Talk about that bridge that's there for students.
Certainly, they're able to grow a wide variety of their skill set, from communication and writing and teamwork to the technical aspects as well, learning the defense tactics for cybersecurity, learning auditing and monitoring, understanding how to work with products and implementation as well.
Awesome. When you talk about this in general, what specific cybersecurity challenges do they help during that time in the election office? I mean, I would gather, and I guess maybe even give me a little more background on how many years the students have been doing this election office internship, and like, what are the things they've gotten to get their hands dirty with?
Yeah, I'd love to give a little background on the program itself. It's called the Virginia Cyber Navigator Internship Program, and it was created back in 2022. Actually, the development of it started back in 2021 with an application to an open grant call for proposals from the NSA as part of the National Centers of Academic Excellence in Cybersecurity Education. So the University of Virginia created a coalition where we partnered with several other universities and the Virginia Department of Elections to create this Virginia Cyber Navigator internship program called VA CNET. And as part of this, we wanted to provide an innovative educational program to essentially train new cybersecurity professionals and to protect the election infrastructure as well. So there's a few different components as part of this program, actually. There's a full semester gateway course that students take called Cybersecurity and Elections, where they learn a wide variety of topics. They do a 2-day kickoff boot camp, which we held at UVA, where all of the students from all of the universities came in, as well as the election officials that they were going to be supporting in their local election offices. And we had speakers, we had team building, we had some really great bonding time for students to be able to bond with their teammates, because students were put into teams of 2 or 3, and also then to meet their client essentially and to have some bonding time with their client. Students then go off on their 10-week internship over the summer to support their local election office. And then at the very end, they come back for a 1-day debrief to basically tell us about all the great things that they did during their internship. We did some surveys, we did some focus groups, we collected feedback in order to improve for the next go round. And so we've done this for the last 3 years, 2022 summer 2023, summer 2024. And the students have gained some really valuable experience over those 3 years. Each year we would have about 40 students. The students would come from University of Virginia, Virginia Tech, VCU, Norfolk State, George Mason, and Old Dominion University. That's the coalition of universities that got together to create this. So we would have about 40 students supporting about 20 different election offices across the state. Each summer, those election offices that we supported could change. There could be some return election offices and some brand new. So overall, we supported well more than 20 election offices across the state over the course of 3 years.
You talk about that kind of 1 day debrief, and even though it's just 1 day, I would assume the impact of the stories from that one period of time are amazing. Can you share some of the cool success stories or impacts you've heard from the students in those debriefs?
Yeah, we had a wide variety of different types of things because it depended on the local election office and what kind of support they needed during their time of having some internships. So, some interns. So, the interns worked on a lot of different policy types of topics, either writing new policies or reviewing policies and updating them, anything from security awareness and training to contingency planning and incident response planning. Some students even got to work on creating new policies that deal with addressing AI. Some students got to work on updating current policies that have to do with privacy and data protection, access control, all of the standard cybersecurity policies that are out there. Beyond that, students were also doing research and recommendation on things like recommending encryption, recommending vulnerability scanning software, probably even performing some vulnerability scanning and doing some auditing, doing some network mapping, doing some asset inventory. And some of the really extra fun projects that students got to work on were tabletop exercises where they actually tested and kind of went through a dry run of an example incident, and made sure that all of the policies that were in place were working well. There were no gaps. People knew who to call. People knew what to do. So certainly some of the success stories that I remember over the last 3 years that came out of this were some of the tabletop exercises, because it wasn't just the interns and their immediate client. A lot of other local officials were actually brought into these tabletop exercises from outside of the election department as well. And it was a very formal occasion. It was a very impactful occasion. The interns certainly were nervous going through that, but at the end, they were so excited. They got really great feedback and they felt like they made a real difference and they could see the results of their difference too, working with all of these various government employees.
From an educator standpoint, when you're back at UVA after the summer and these students come back into the classroom, how would you say that intern experience complements the coursework that's taking place? If anything, I'm assuming it brings new energy to the classroom for those students, but I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so it really did help us shape it, especially after the first year. It helped us kind of go back and tweak the cybersecurity and elections course for sure. But we had already created that cybersecurity and elections course to be a socio-technical type of course where they weren't just learning coding, they weren't just learning the technical aspects, they were also learning these other aspects of it as well, the social component, the political components. So after the first year, when we realized, wow, students were doing a lot more policy development, policy reviews, we incorporated more of that back into our course. Typical computer science students at any university aren't doing a lot of writing. They're not learning a lot about policies, whether it's cybersecurity or otherwise. So we definitely incorporated that back in. We did an assignment during the semester where students did write an incident response plan. as an exercise. We also did an incident response tabletop type of exercise in class where we divided students out into groups and they needed to respond to this fictitious incident. So we were starting to walk them through some of these things that they might experience that they would be um, doing in the summer. Some of the biggest feedback during that debrief when they would come back after their internship was interesting too, because some of their biggest takeaways and the things that they learned, the skills that they developed, weren't necessarily those technical skills. One of the surveys asked, the skills, techniques, and knowledge gained or improved during your internship. And number one, every single year of all 3 years was communication and presentation skills. That was the number one thing that students said that they felt that they improved. But they also felt that some of the other I'd say top 5 skills were things like leadership and taking initiative, teamwork and collaboration, time management. So they certainly were developing and improving those skills during their internship. They were walking in with the technical skills already.
Right. Excuse me. I always say that too. When I'm thinking about hiring and I give advice to people about that, I'm like, hire for character and hire for those critical thinking skills, the technical like skills you can teach for the most part. Obviously, you need to have the ability to absorb and learn. But yes, I mean, that leadership, that communication, that's key. That's key everywhere. It's so important. Um, I think too, we as humans, so I shouldn't just put this on students. Humans always look at the biggest and the baddest, the baddest and biggest, coolest thing. And I think Google or Amazon or any of those big tech companies that might be out there always kind of are like the shiny object or the squirrel, and you're like, oh, I really want to go that route. But talk a little bit about some of the opportunities, because I think this is a great example of that. There are really good opportunities outside of those massive corporate organizations that can provide those amazing careers for students.
There's a lot of opportunities outside of the big ones. And you're right. The students that I typically interact with, I do a lot of career mentorship. They are aiming for some of these large companies, whether it's the Googles and Amazons of the world or the large tech consulting companies of the world. And I think it's because they just don't have the awareness of these other types of public service jobs specifically. That typically isn't who is at the career fairs. That's typically not what they're hearing from their friends that have already graduated and where they're going. So sometimes it's just lack of awareness. And certainly there's a lot of other options. Even in my career, I've worked in public service, I've worked in startups, I've worked in the large consulting companies as well. And I'm always mentoring students that they certainly should experience as much as they can in their career, that you're going to get something different out of all of those different experiences. There's pros and cons to all, but I've certainly learned more and done more in some of the smaller types of organizations that I've worked for. And certainly in some of the public service types of organizations that I've worked with. At that time, you are sometimes a person of all trades, right? So you're seeing a lot more, you're responding to a lot more, and you're certainly learning a lot more at that time.
When you think about that nuance of the smaller versus maybe those larger tech companies, and I don't know the answer to this, would you say it makes more sense? Again, I don't really want to, would it help to start in a smaller one so you can kind of build that stronger base and that stronger, broader foundation? Or I guess it's fine too to go right to a tech company, but I just feel like there's some nuances to those smaller ones that might help students. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's definitely some different paths. I mean, my personal path started in a state job and a small team. And I didn't get to the tech, and then I went to a startup after that. So that was also small. And I didn't get to the tech company until I was, late 20s, I believe. So I felt that at least for my personal path, that really helped because by the time I got to the tech company, I was walking in very technically qualified because of all of the different experiences I had, being the person of all trades, being the person in the startup that if you didn't know how to do something, you went and figured it out because no one else there knew either. So certainly once I got to the larger company, I think that benefited me walking into that larger company. I could see the reverse as well. Larger companies have some really great benefits to them in terms of their structure, their logistics and ability to climb a corporate ladder. It's very well laid out. Some of their pay and benefits, honestly, might be a bit better as well.
True, true, very true. When you talk to students, do you notice the nuance when you're talking about hiring? Is it that they are just intrigued by that shiny object of Google or big tech, or is it that they really just don't know some of these smaller opportunities are out there? Or maybe it's a mix.
I thought that students were likely chasing the higher salaries. But I've actually found from talking to many students that's not the case. Salary is not the most important item on their list when they're looking at careers. Sometimes I do think they are attracted to the big and shiny, just because that's what we see and hear all the time. But what I'm learning from talking to students is they're also really interested in, work-life balance, right? They're interested in not working the 80-hour work weeks. They're interested in diverse roles. They're interested in the ability to experience a lot of different types of activities. So I certainly did think at one point that students were just going to be wanting the higher salaries, but I'm actually finding out that's not the case. There's a lot of other things wrapped up into how they're viewing their careers.
This particular internship that we were just talking about with the electoral offices around Virginia, from what I understand, you said that grant has ended. Is there an opportunity for that grant to be reinvigorated and fire back up for other students? Or if not, are there other maybe similar experiences in public service that students can still take part in?
Yes, this particular grant was for 3 years, and so that one has ended there because we were a coalition of 6 different universities. Some of the different universities are pursuing ways to extend and ways to go into the next version of what this was offering. So there's certainly other opportunities that are on the horizon right now. And there's just other opportunities for students to be able to get involved in public service jobs. Sometimes, though, you need to know where to look.
Yeah.
Public service jobs, it could be working at the university. If your university is a state-funded university, it could be working there as a student. One of my students right now does that. She works for our help desk at the University of Virginia, and she found that posting on Handshake, which is what a lot of students are using to find their jobs. And so a lot of other students have come to me and then gone to her to say, how did you know about this job? I really want this job. It's really exciting. And she's been providing some coaching and mentoring to other students as well. I have other students that I've been talking about that are spending more time on USA jobs, and they're looking for various internship opportunities. I just had a career coaching call with a student last week, and she's looking at going directly into the intelligence agencies. And so she's looking at jobs on USA Jobs for that. So a lot of times it is just that awareness and knowing where to look and what to look for, and not just focusing on who might be at the big career fairs at the school.
I could see that. I started my career in broadcast journalism, and there were times when I would interview people, not necessarily about their job, but what they did obviously would be a part of it. And I'm like, how did you even know that was a job? Like, I didn't even know that was a career out there. And so it is amazing if you kind of like look in the nooks and crannies and open, don't, open up the stones, where they say, like, don't leave any stone unturned. Like, look everywhere, because you never know where those opportunities might be. And by the way, I stink at metaphors, so I should never say that. I'm like, stones, rocks, something about jobs underneath them.
But you're right about students saying, I didn't even know that was an option. I didn't even know that was a career. Every single semester when I teach Intro to Cybersecurity. I have about 300 students per semester that take that at University of Virginia, all undergrads, typically third and fourth year undergrads, so juniors and seniors. And I have so many students come to me and say, wow, I'm learning so much in your class about cybersecurity and so many opportunities I didn't know existed. Because our students, at least in this program where I teach our computer science students, they're very heavily focused on software development, software engineering. When I teach the broad base of cybersecurity and intro to cybersecurity, they learn about things like security awareness and training, policy development, auditing, monitoring, software and security testing. And so many students are, their eyes are really open to the vast quantity of jobs available in cybersecurity. And so many come up to me and say, especially towards the end of the class, they say, I wasn't considering a job in cybersecurity until I took this class. And now I know about all these other things. Also, because I have a lot of students that say, I am a computer science major, but I don't necessarily want to just sit and code all day. I'm a people person. I want to interact with people. I want to, create other types of deliverables and work products outside of being a developer. So students are certainly excited when they find out just the sheer number of opportunities available in cybersecurity field.
When you're looking ahead, and of course, no one can see the future, but what are your thoughts on what the future holds for public service cybersecurity and maybe, even specifically the electoral side of it?
I certainly think that it's going to continue to grow with a lot more opportunities, especially with a lot of the changes that we are starting to see with AI and certain new technologies that are out there. I think that also with this younger generation, they want to make a difference. They want to be involved in something that they see is a bigger picture. At our debrief, we do a survey after the internship. One of the questions is the course and internship hasn't, it's a yes or no question because it's all anonymous. The course and internship has increased my interest in pursuing a career in public service. And 86% of respondents said yes. There's also another question that is, I believe the work I did in this internship is important. And this is the election internship. 100% of the respondents responded yes. So students are certainly interested in this type of work where they feel like they're making a difference and that they could readily see the impact that they're having, not just in their own company, but in a broader perspective.
Thinking about students, and if I was listening to this, like, how can I get my hands on this internship? And of course, we talked about like the US jobs, USA jobs, and talking to fellow students who have cool internships and asking them how they got there, I think is a key part. But I also want to kind of loop in just how we found one another, which is that you use the Virginia Cyber Range, and that's the same platform as the US cyber range. It's just one's used in the Commonwealth of Virginia and one is used outside in other states. How important is that hands-on learning? And is that a piece of advice to give students? Like, hey, don't just do lecture, but make sure you're doing the thing and getting your hands dirty.
It is extremely important. So the intro to cybersecurity course that I teach every semester, where I have about 300 students per semester, I use the Virginia Cyber Range extensively. That intro to cybersecurity course was also a prerequisite requirement before you could even do the cybersecurity and elections course for this internship. So students already had to have that intro background before even starting to take the cybersecurity and elections course that is part of this internship. So I run 7 different hands-on exercises on the Virginia Cyber Range throughout the semester. And it's amazing to see the students and how enthusiastic they are about it, how excited they are about learning these tools, learning how to think like an attacker, learning how to defend against attacks, learning the real tools that cybersecurity professionals are using. And I tell them that day one of class, I say, you are going to learn things in here and learn tools that we're using in industry. And these are things you can put on your resume. You will be putting the names of these tools on your resume. You will have things to talk about in your job interviews of what you've done in these hands-on activities. And then the final exam for the intro to cybersecurity class is a capture the flag. And for those who aren't familiar with capture the flag style of competitions. It's a problem solving, a challenge kind of competition where it's almost like a puzzle. You're trying to solve problems. And so capture the flags are very popular in cybersecurity in terms of gaining new skills, learning how to do various technical challenges. I run it as a final exam. All individual, so you're not working as part of a team, but you are going through that same scenario of solving a challenge, solving a problem. And what students are doing is they're applying all of the things they learned in those hands-on exercises. So the final exam, the capture the flag, runs on the Virginia Cyber Range. They're using all of the tools that they've used throughout the semester to solve these challenges. And hands down, every semester I have feedback from students that it's the most fun final that they've ever taken. I also love the feedback that I get where I open this for, several days. So students don't have to sit and just try to solve everything within an hour or two. They can actually work on it because there's several challenges on there. There's like 20 challenges. They can work on it, go away for a while, come back and work on it. So it's actually open for several days. But I love the feedback that I get from students that say, when I sat down and I started working on this and I solved my first challenge, I went on and I solved the second challenge, and then it was so much fun and so addictive. I couldn't stop working on it. I just stayed until I could solve as many challenges as possible right at that time. So I always enjoy that feedback because the more motivated you are and the more you're enjoying what you're doing, the more you're going to learn. Versus just memorizing facts and writing them back down on paper as an answer. They're actually learning to take what hands-on pieces that they've learned throughout the semester and apply it in a real life scenario.
I love it. I love it. And yeah, you don't get feedback often on final exams that they had. The word fun doesn't always end up in the same sentence.
Exactly.
I think from the US Cyber Range, I know one of our big goals is to bridge those skilled students to the workforce looking for those skills. And I think it's no different. And that's why we're in alignment so well with professors like yourself. From your perspective, from the educational side of it, what needs to happen? What could big tech, what could public sector jobs do to start filling that hiring gap that we have right now with cybersecurity, that these positions are being left unfilled? Is there something from your perspective that they could be doing? Like, I don't know, guest speak at a lecture of yours. I mean, I don't know, that might be very micro, but maybe more on a macro version that would help with that hiring.
The guest speaking actually does help, even though you might be seeing that as kind of a micro, it's really important. And I bring in several guest speakers throughout the semester from large consulting firms to smaller, more public service types of roles as well, so that students gain that awareness, but then also learn from those guest speakers. These are the skills I need to be building, right? So a lot of times it is those hands-on skills, being able to put those tools on your resume, being able to talk about them in an interview. And I've told students before, even if it's just talking about your capture the flag final exam in an interview, that's important because that shows the employer that you have these critical thinking and these problem solving types of skill sets and this mindset. So just showing that is important. But yes, bringing in speakers is certainly helpful because we hear a lot of times about the day in the life, right? What kinds of work are they doing? What kinds of things are helping them succeed? What are they looking for when they hire in? That's helpful. But then also, bigger picture types of connections as well, being able to have more diversity of companies and organizations at things like career fairs and job fairs, participating in competitions like public capture the flags, for example, and seeing more role models as well. And also more diverse role models is really important across the cybersecurity career field.
As we kind of wrap up, obviously elections right around the corner, a really big one. The grants ended, unfortunately, but maybe there'll be hope for more. What kind of impact can these students make on me, Becky Freemall, or you, Angela Orebaugh, like, because we all care about this election deeply. And knowing that these students are out there that have the skill set, they're learning the internships, and they can really affect and impact the future of elections. What are your thoughts on what we might see from internships like this moving forward? Again, I know this grant did shut down, but maybe, I mean, I shouldn't say shut down, just ended. It was a 3-year grant, but I would love your thoughts on the safety of elections and how these students could make an impact in that.
Yeah, so in terms of safety of elections, we were just working in Virginia with our interns, but for the sustainability of the program in general, we've actually set it up that it can be a model for other universities and for other states to implement as well. And in fact, all of our curriculum and all of our materials is being uploaded to a system called Clark, which is a public system to be able to share. So we actually created this entire program to go beyond the borders of just the Commonwealth of Virginia so that other states could implement this, but not even just other election offices, but other types of public interest organizations could implement something like this as well. So certainly the impact of the Virginia Cyber Navigator internship program, even though the original implementation of the first 3 years of the program has completed, there's lots of other models that can be had from what we've established moving forward. In terms of students and public interest types of roles and public service types of roles, I also let students know, don't forget about all the volunteer opportunities out there. There are so many. There are so many nonprofit organizations that need help that don't have the money to pay for interns. There are so many other types of organizations out there that really need help, that are small and don't have the money to be able to pay interns. And you can make a big difference. I've had students volunteer at a variety of different nonprofits and really make a big difference. And even small mom and pop companies sometimes, really need that help. That the mid-size and the large size, they're the ones that everyone's hearing about, but we certainly have a lot of nonprofits. We certainly have a lot of small companies that need help. So sometimes it may be extracurricular volunteer efforts. In terms of election and election security, I certainly feel very confident about that. One of the things that the students learned in the course for the Commonwealth of Virginia, there's already a very extensive set of security standards for elections in the Commonwealth of Virginia called the Locality Election Security Standards that have been in place for many, many years. The students learned all about every single standard in that collection of standard when they were in the class, because that is the piece that they were working with the most when they were in their internships. So if anything, they were validating the security of the election offices that already exist. So I felt like they were able to continue to grow their skills, create some more skills on top of their current technical skills, and still make a difference. One of my favorite quotes, from our anonymous survey, we got quotes, and one of the questions was about the rewards. What was rewarding about this? And one of my favorite quotes was, the student said, being able to experience the day-to-day life in the security industry while knowing that the work I am doing is making a difference for people in our country. And I felt that that was really powerful, that students are seeing this internship with locality election offices as making an impact nationwide, and it is.
I love it. A wonderful place to end. I do want to ask, just in case, because I could ask questions all day long, because I think this is so intriguing. Is there anything that any takeaway, high level thought that you really just kind of want to wrap up that students should know as we part ways and say goodbye?
Certainly, in terms of cybersecurity careers, in terms of public service careers, I definitely want students to know to talk to as many people as they can. Don't just zero in on the career fairs and some of the big names that you're always hearing. Certainly keep them as an option, but talk to your professors. Talk after class to guest speakers when they are in classes. Check other resources like USA Jobs that you might not be thinking about. Connect on LinkedIn for sure. A lot of my students are having big impact on LinkedIn. A lot of my students, actually a few of my students have told me some of their most promising leads that they've gotten in terms of careers is connecting with alumni at their university on LinkedIn. So people that they don't know, but they are alumni, and those alumni really want to talk to current students. So there's certainly a lot of ways outside of the box that you can start connecting with people, expanding your network, learning about all of these other opportunities that are out there that just aren't highlighted as much every day.
Angela Orebaugh, Associate Professor over University of Virginia, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
I'm so happy to be here, and thank you for having me.
110%. And to all of our listeners, you are listening to NextGen Cyber, the future of cybersecurity, a podcast of the U.S. Cyber Range.